Hi, it's nice to be with you again. I'm Pam Callen. I'm a local artist here in Southern Maryland. And this class will be watercolor with pastels. I wanted to show you, I did practice a little bit yesterday at a friend's house on plein air, outside, looking at these things. This is her little creek. These are some of her irises, which are still in bloom. I do tend to be rather impressionistic, so they may not look exactly like irises. Maybe I'll embellish them a little bit, we'll see. Anyway, the point is, underneath the pastels is a nice little layer, very loose layer of watercolor, and that's the name of the game. I'm going to go through how I did that. This is on sandpaper. You will remember we used sandpaper before to do our pastels. This is 240, I don't know what it is, maybe per square inch sandpaper. It ranges. I'm going to use 400 today. I'm also going to use watercolor paper, and that requires that we add some teeth with gesso. I couldn't make up my mind which approach to take, so we're going to try to do both in small paintings today. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy the class. These were done very, very quickly, just so I could remember what this might look like and how it might act. So since we're working with both watercolor and pastel, we have both. And I couldn't make up my mind whether we were going to do this on the 400 grit sandpaper that I used the last time, or watercolor paper. This is 300-pound cold press watercolor paper, very robust. The hot press is some kind of smooth, slick things. I've never used it, so I don't know. You can use other watercolor papers. Just be sure that you tape them down carefully so that they won't buckle while you use them. We have our watercolor brushes. I will be using the largest for the job at hand because we just want a very loose sketch. We don't want any detail really in the watercolor portion. This is a big deckled watercolor paper. I won't be using this. I've got a smaller one because we're going to work small so we can fit everything in. The deckled edge is this edge right here, and when we tear this wonderful deckled edge, we usually get another deckled edge. So if you put this in half, you get this wonderful sort of curly-Q effect. You'll see a lot of artists just frame their work like that so that the deckled edge shows. We have baby wipes to keep us clean from our pastels. I do have gloves, and I may put them on today. We'll see. I have my nice pencils and charcoals here. I'll probably just use a sketch pencil. Do a very quick sketch. No detail at all, just the grand big lines of the thing. I have my little travel watercolor set. I do use the nice liquid watercolors, the expensive ones, and that's fine. But when you're traveling around, there's nothing wrong with experiment with some of these. A lot of companies make them, and you can get them relatively inexpensively, and you can even get them that these pans come out and you can replace them. I know that several local artists recommend different ones. Of course, we have our water, we have a good set of paper towels, we have our gesso, which is important for the watercolor paper because it has no teeth. So once we get our little sketch in, we're going to add some teeth with the gesso. And of course, we have our hard and soft pastels and our pastel pencils. And so that's what we're going to work with today. Oh, and our cheap pipe insulation, which will help us blend our pastels. And this is a clear gesso. There is black gesso, there's white gesso, there's gray gesso. Gesso is, we call the things that we're going to paint on the supports. These are both different supports. Canvas is considered a support. You will see when you buy a canvas that they usually say it's gessoed. It's pre-prepared for you to paint on. Because if you're just painting on the cotton or the linen, the paint's going to soak right in. And so you don't want that. And the other thing that the gesso does is it does provide a bit of texture. So if you like texture in your paintings, not everybody does, but if you like texture in your paintings, then you need to add the gesso. The reason we don't add the gesso before the watercolor is because the watercolor paper is specifically designed to absorb the watercolors, and so we don't want to block that, and we don't also want all that texture in this underpainting. We want the texture in the pastels. Using watercolor directly on the sandpaper is fine. It does not absorb any of the toothiness. None of the roughness disappears as a result of putting the watercolor on the sandpaper. So you can go directly without using the gesso and start using your pastels on the sandpaper, but not on the watercolor. You won't have the same flexibility. You won't have the same level of ability to add layers, and that's what you're looking for when you use pastels. I may not put as many layers on as some people, particularly today. We're not going to fuss too much with our compositions, but I do have a couple of compositions in mind. They are both landscapes, and we'll get started in just a minute. Okay, what we have here is 2 reference photos. I've also got my iPad over here because I have a bunch more photos of the same place. This one is looking one way on the beach, and this one is looking the other way on the beach. And so what I'm going to try to do is do this one on the watercolor paper and this one on the sandpaper. And we're going to start by just doing an extremely loose notional sketch. And these are both going to be big sky paintings, because when we are outside, although it doesn't look like it here because of the way I took the photos, most of what we see is sky. And when the viewer looks at a painting that's a big sky painting, they actually breathe a little more easily because they can feel that oxygen around them. So that's my theory anyway. And I have had other artists tell me that when I studied with him. So we're going to start down here because although it looks, I'm going to put the horizon in. The reason I'm using a ruler, and I do this all the time. In fact, if I had a T-square, I would use that to draw in the horizon. It's the one time when you really do kind of need a straight line. Because if you don't have a straight horizon, for the rest of your life, your friends will come into your house and straighten your picture. And that, you just don't want that going on. So we're going to do this. I'm going to do this one first. While that's drying, I'm going to do this one. But we're going to go ahead and draw in some little notional trees here. Well, first we better put our point in, huh? And that's going to come around like this and come right over here like that. That's just how it's going to look. And then we're going to have some trees going on over here near this land, because this land goes way out there. It's a little teeny point, but it kind of disappears. Kind of disappears in the hinterland there. In fact, we might move that a little bit closer to the left. Not sure we want all that going on way over there. So we'll do that, and we'll have this coming down here. And we'll have some grasses and things, but we'll put those on with our pastels later. Don't get fussy right off the bat. So we got our tree line. Whatever you do, don't make them all the same size. They're not all the same size, as you can easily see. We may put a boat in. Maybe we'll put a boat in. We'll see. Put a boat or two going up the beach, getting smaller as they go, which of course is what they would do. And they'll just be notional boats, suggestions of boats. They won't be the real deal. Anyway, that's that. That's as far as we're going to kind of go with that. I like this sky on my iPad. It's a beautiful cerulean sky. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to lay in some watercolors, and we're going to get started on our watercolor composition. And we're not, again, it's going to be very notional, And we're not going to get fussy. I'm going to take a little bit of this cerulean blue that I have in here, this beautiful cerulean blue, and I'm going to mix up a fairly good puddle. And I'm going to use the largest. The reason I'm using a small brush to get the paint is because I have these little teeny paints in the pan, but I'm going to use the largest brush I can to get the job done on the canvas itself. And in fact, I might go right behind those trees, because those trees, when you're working from watercolors, you go from light to dark. When you're working with pastels, you go from dark to light. And we're going to have to let both of these dry before we get to that stage. So I'm going to take a fairly large brush, I'm going to wet it, and I'm going to start working quickly here on our sky. And that's going to drip down, and that's okay. We're going to follow the bead. We're going to want it a little darker at the top, but again, we can correct anything with pastels. This, we will cover most of what we do with pastels, but this will inform and influence where we go. So we want to start with this. This is our luminous underlay painting, our luminous watercolor. That is the advantage of watercolor, they are luminous. So there we have it. That's about it. The clouds are going to go in with pastels. We're also going to have some. And this I don't like. We'll make that lighter with our pastels. But that's where we're going with this. We're a little bit darker down here in the water, so I'm going to start working on that. Actually, I think I'll put some sand in. That's going to be very notional, because really it doesn't have much color. It doesn't have much color at all. We want a little bit of something in there. Ah, there we go. I'm cheating. I'm using a little bit of purple just to give it some character. And we're going to come right over here. This is a yellow and a purple. Now, this is an interesting thing for you to know. When you are looking at the color wheel and you want to gray down a color, here is yellow. Opposite that color is violet. If you add yellow to violet or violet to yellow, you gray down the color that's opposite on the color wheel. So that is something useful that you might want to know. So I've got a little yellow in here. I'm going to add a little bit more purple. I think that's purple. And there it is. And we'll have a nice gray when we're done. That looks more like a beach. There we go. Now, remember, watercolors always dry lighter than you put them on. So don't worry about it if it looks a little bit dark. Besides, as I say, we're going to go over everything with our pastels later on. And I'm going to cut this pretty close, because that point really is a point. This is Cove Point, and that is the point. That's where that point happens. And that's what it's named for, is that point right there. We're going to add our grasses in later, maybe with some pastel pencils, something like that. This is still a little wet, but I am going to try to lay in some. Again, don't get fussy at this point. We're going to lay in some rather dark greens. They're influenced by the sky. All colors influence all other colors in nature. And we have a fairly large one here. So let's get that right in there. Let's get that in there. Besides, it's closer. Remember, in landscapes, if it's further away, it's lighter and bluer and grayer. If it's closer to you, it's brighter and darker and warmer looking. It's going to look more orange or more yellow or more things like that. Since these are the closest trees, I'm laying them in. Again, we can go back and fix anything, because we're going to be working with some pastels later on. But I'm actually going to add a little bit of blue because we're moving further away from ourselves here. And I'm going to really water it down so that it doesn't look too in your face here as we move further down. That might be a little too light. Oh. Bump that up, there we go. And then as we get way down here, then it really does sort of just get notional. And of course there's a spit of land across the bay as well, which is on the other side. We'll decide whether we want to put that in or not. It might be a nice thing to have. I don't want to confuse our composition though, so we'll see. But that's all we're going to do right now with this. We'll probably put some pastels on that and straighten that all out, but that's as much as we want to do. This is coming forward to us, so it's going to be a little brighter. We're going to put some grasses in. So we're going to let this dry now, and well, why don't I put some water in? Let's put some water in. What the heck? The bay is looking pretty blue that day, isn't it? In fact, in this one it's almost purple. I got up this morning and looked out there, it was pink. So you never know. But here we are. Nice deep blue right there. And again, we're going to try to keep that horizon straight. This is our shot at doing that. And the water comes up and goes around the point and right up there to Baltimore. So there we are. Hopefully we won't have too many blooms going on there. And we'll let that all settle down. And hopefully it won't bleed into each other, but we are where we are and we can fix anything with our pastels. Okay, we're gonna let this dry. We have the bones of our composition right now. So we're gonna give that a rest. I'm gonna move on to my next reference here. And I'm actually gonna use a painting that I have done previously. And this is what that looks like, just so you can see it. This day that I took this photo, there was a mist that was hanging over the cliffs on the right side. You don't see that in this picture. This was probably taken, in the fall, looking at the vegetation. So it was kind of barren and bleak and just not very green and lush like this one was. So let's do the same thing. We will start with our horizon here, and we're going to make it low. Again, this is a big sky picture. Well, we're emphasizing the sky. Here we have, and I'm going to say we're going to stop right here with the cliffs, and we're going to go up this way. And they go. It's very dramatic the way that they go up, and there is a sort of a bump up there, right there. And then we have a little frou-frou going on, but the water, again, goes around the point there. So we want to sort of emphasize that. We'll have the point coming down a little bit. We'll fix all of that with our pastels. And I'm not even going to bother to fix this because we're going to be going right in with pastels after we finish our watercolor. So here we have the water coming down, and it comes right along in here, and it ends right there, and that's all beach coming along this way. So that's what we're looking at here. Okay, so I am going to do the clouds. I love clouds. I love doing clouds, and but I'm going to do all of that with pastels. So I'm going to lay in something of a sky. We're going to try to make the top dark and the rest lighter and lighter. It's hard to do since I've got this upright, which I wouldn't normally do with watercolors, but you couldn't see it if I had it flat on the table. So that's where we are, and that's okay. Again, I think the cerulean blue is a beautiful color. The sky really is kind of cerulean blue. Sometimes it has a little a little magenta or something in it. Maybe we'll add a little bit of red and see what we get. I'm going to clean up this pan here in a little bit. Let's see if we can make this start out dark and get lighter as we go. And the way you do that is by following that bead. You can see the bead that is forming as we come down. We'll just keep going, and we'll sort of wet our brush. Let's get that a little darker. You can play around with it as long as it's wet and you can avoid that bloom. It's okay, but you don't want to tinker too much. I'm gonna wet the brush now and make sure this is lighter as we come down. See that? So it's just yeah, we want to have this cliff go up pretty dramatically. And there we are. There's our sky, our notional sky. Then we have our water, which is again darker, I'm going to say, and maybe greener. Ah, that's a nice color, isn't it? We'll use that. When we look at the water of the bay from the shore, it looks nice and blue, but if you walk right up to it, it's kind of green and brown and stuff. The reason that it looks blue, of course, is because it's reflecting the sky. And everything reflects off of everything, and when we're outside, that's just a matter of what happens out there. I'm going to work on this part up here, and then I'm going to come down and work on some of this. I'll take that off with some water, I think. Here we go. And we'll have a distinct shoreline or some grass going up there, because that's how it is. This is basically a cobalt with a little bit of green and blue and brown mixed in, I believe, is what we're looking at here. I'm having trouble with my shoreline because we are upright. Water really isn't blue. It looks blue when we look at it from the shore because it's really reflecting the sky, and that's what you're seeing. To some extent, although it looks darker or lighter or pinker or purpler or some, and the sky in it also can turn those colors. And the clouds, people think clouds are white. Clouds are not white. Clouds are almost certainly at least white and gray or white and brown or even white and green sometimes, or white and pink and purple, and they can be any color. And now I'm getting my bloom. That's okay. We'll fix that with some pastels. I think what I'm going to do is come down here and just lay in some. Let me clean my brush. Lay in some more sand. Let's get some sand color here. And this time I'm going to make it quite yellow, because there's going to be some grass growing up in here, and this goes right up that way. There'll be some trees and things up here, and we want to make sure that we get this going in the right direction, because this is what the shore does. In fact, we will have some green going right up that way. And the land kind of comes down here too. So it sort of dips in the middle in our composition. That's how it looks. So I'm not concerned about that. We'll fix all of that. You can fix anything. We're going over everything with pastels, but I am not liking my blooms going on here. But again, they won't. If I would be frantic. I would be putting this down if I were actually trying to do a watercolor, but that's not what I'm trying to do. Let's see how dry. This is almost dry now, so we could really start working on this fairly soon. Without touching this purple part, I'm going to just lay in a little bit of blue, since it's in the distance, blue, and maybe even a little purple. you know, it's trees and stuff, but it's way off in the distance and it's misty on this day. So we're going to make sure that's nice and light. And we'll be adding different colors again with the pastels later on. Just want to make that nice and subtle without touching the other paint. That's the secret. That's how you get it to stop. So let's leave that alone. We'll come back to that. We'll fix everything, I promise. I'm going to leave this one alone for now, see what settles in, and we'll come back and fix it, I promise, with pastels. It's just too wet to work with right now, and the water is the main problem right now, and we want to be able to have some lights in here and things like that, and we want lots of grasses in here because that's how it is there. All right, let's see. We're going to work from dark to light with our pastels now. So with your permission, I'm going to get started on that. All right, so this is clear gesso, because the whole point of using it on the watercolors, we want the watercolor to show through, so we don't want to cover it up with colored gesso or opaque gesso or whatever other thing we could be using. Excuse me, I'm just going to grab a paper towel. And so I'm going to take this Hake brush I have here, and I'm going to brush it on. You won't need to be doing this, of course, on the sandpaper, because the whole reason we're putting this on, remember, is because watercolor paper does not have enough teeth in it to hold the pastel. And you notice nothing showing, right? The gesso is just coming on here, and you may see a little bit of opacity, but it's nothing significant. And so we're making our own teeth. Looks like I need a little bit more here, just judging by the what I'm seeing from the side here. So let's just go ahead and keep painting on until we're satisfied that I'm going to go all directions here so that we are sure we've got teeth for our. And still, even though we've masked this a wee bit, you can still see the composition very clearly, and it still will influence and indicate where we're going with our painting. The bones are there, and that's all we needed from our underpainting. And you might say, well, what's the point? What is the point? You're going to cover the thing anyway. Why bother with the watercolor? But that's why. Anytime, any step that you take that helps you plan the composition and work out problems as you go is a good thing. That's just my my philosophy. I tend to want to paint quickly, and I don't want to be slowed down. And the reason that you can paint quickly is because you've thought about it, you've planned it. Don't overplan it, but think about it in advance, and then you're good to go. I'm going to clean up a little bit here, and then I'll come right back. So we are back to our combination of the two different references that I'm using here. This one that probably is off camera that you can't see, which is that, and then this one just to keep me sort of honest. And I'm going to start laying in some darks, because that's what we do with pastels. And we're going to try to remember to work on the whole thing all at once rather than focusing on any one. That's when you get in trouble, when you just focus on one thing. I'm going to save the real dark blue for the water, because I want parts of the water to be really, really dark and parts of it to be really, really light. And so that's what I'm looking for. We've got good movement in these clouds. These clouds look like they're going that way. The clouds I have in my reference are going the other way, so we can take our pick. But it's nice to put different blues in while you're working with your pastels. And I'm just going to do a little of that. We're going to have some movement going on. See how that nice watercolor shows through? So there's a start, and then we'll take a little bit lighter blue, maybe coming down. You guys realize that right overhead is the darkest that the sky is going to be that you see. When you head toward the horizon, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. So that's what we're going to represent here. Here, the top of the canvas is as close to us as we're going to see. I'm going to go back and put some clouds in, so don't worry about that right now. But as you move closer to the horizon, it's even a cove point off in pink. So I'm just going to make this lighter and lighter as we come down, and we're going to go ahead and add some clouds in as we want to, as we feel it's appropriate. So I might just put some of that pink in because I see that so often there, right at the horizon line. And this may seem weird to you, but that's what happens there. So let's find something that works for us here. None of those do. Let's see what we have here. Here's a nice one. Look at that luscious pink color. So we'll go ahead and add some of that in right here. Isn't that lovely? We're just working on our whole composition. Now, remember our trusty pipe insulation? We're going to go ahead and take some of that and start to blend. Look at that. Isn't that nice? How that works. And we kept our darks up here. We have our lights coming down, and I'm going to start to lay in some darks in the trees over here. And we've got our movement still in the sky, and we'll be adding our nice clouds and things. We'll go back and do that because so do the lights. By the way, you use almost no white, just so you know. All things are relative, but you certainly want to go easy on the white. Clouds are different colors. Just let's remember that. Put that back where it belongs. Let's see. Let's get some. Let's work on this far thing right here because it has some nice greens in it. It really does, but they're soft. And it has a lot of blue and purple and stuff like that in it too. But this is all very soft back here because it was really a misty day. And so we'll put a little of that going on here. And it gets mixed up with each other. You've got the you've got the ground in the front coming up here, but you've also got this point coming right down into the water right there. And we'll need to make sure that that water goes out around that point where it is, because that's what happens in nature. And so let's take a little bit of our softest blue, purpley kind of stuff and start to lay that in a little bit back here. We've got some shapes in this. There's a sort of a ridge that comes right up here, so we'll just kind of lay that in, get that going a little bit. But yes, we have very soft colors, and then there's a bit of a bump up here. And let's bring some of this down. And I guess I lost my dark, didn't I? Let's put a little bit of that back in. There. There's a little bit of a dark. Just so we know that there is some structure to this hill. It's not all, it's not all fuzzy looking back there. It's not all flat and straight up and all that sort of thing. Oh, let's build something right here in the front coming toward us, because that's what I see. I see, and it's starting to get a little bit brighter and darker. Let's see, what can we use that's nice here? This one maybe. A little bit brighter coming this way. up the beach toward us here. We'll have to add some variety, of course, because we can't be all one color ever. That's just a horrible thought. So let's add some of this nice rosy color in there. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Yes, so we'll have, and then underneath it's going to be a little bit darker, isn't it? Let's see, let's put some of this in down there. Yeah, let's get some darks going on. And then we're coming forward with our greens. We're coming forward with our onto the beach. So we're actually getting quite dark now. Let's see about this. Let's see if this does it. We might have to move on up here. Oh, there we go. Actually, let me look at this. No, that's a nice one. I like that one. Let's use this one. I see we do have some rust things going on here, so let's go ahead and start looking at that, because we're forward now, coming this way, and we're starting to get our grasses, our lovely grasses. It's all too same for me, so I'm going to soften it a little bit. Okay, I've just decided we're not dark enough right here, because we really do want this stuff to start coming forward for us. Oh, here's a nice dark green. This might be too dark. But what we'll do is, as I said, we're going to try to work on the whole composition at once. And so let's just add some of this in right here. We're going to have to go back and fix our water, but we'll get to that. I'm going to leave the center open to be a little bit lighter, to give the viewer a little bit of a break here. And we're going to come up here and we're going to put a little bit of this dark in right there, like we're coming forward with our various grasses and trees and shrubs and different things, and there are different things there, and that's all good. And again, we haven't started our blending yet, but we're gonna get there. I'm working from dark to light, so that's what we're doing. All right, so we're bringing our darks into the picture now, and in the foreground. And we're going to have to start to work on the water here pretty soon, you know what I mean? Because it's there. That's the whole point of, here, let's bring some of this dark up in there so we can tell that that's closer to us, right? And we're going to put some orange in things too. Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? So, let's see here. We got a lot of orange stuff going on here. Oh, look at that. Isn't that nice? Isn't this fun? Aren't we having fun? Really, you should try this. It's a lot of fun. I can't tell you how much fun this is. And you don't have to spend a fortune on pastels. You can spend a fortune on anything, but really just get started with it. It's fun. You know, I've got all different sets and they're different price points. Yeah, and this is a little too purple for me back here. That's a little better. I think we need some water in there, but we also need some pretty light grass right here in the front. So I'm going to start working on that. We're going to have fun with our clouds here in a minute. But let's just put some nice light grass right here. And we'll put some yellow in there. And this is no rhyme or reason. This is what I see in nature. So this is what I'm gonna add into our nice little painting here. And you can see that this kind of centers us here, doesn't it? And I just like that, again, the luminosity. I guess they lend the luminosity to each other. The watercolor is there. It's a reminder. We like it. It's beautiful. But we're also adding in these other things, aren't we? We're having fun. We're playing. It's just not work. Let's just do a little of this. Let's put some water in. Isn't that nice? Let's get that a little more regular here. But I don't like it all dark, do I? I want some lights in there. And we're even going to put, this will be one of the exceptions when we put some white in there. It's starting to look like water, isn't it? Look at that. So let's just blend it a bit. There we go. And that's our water. We want it to be very light right here. Right there is where we want our lightness to be. We do want it to go up around that point. A little bit. So I'm going to bring the point down into the water a little bit. Right there. Oops, too bright. Oh, here we are. This is what we're looking for, right there. A little something to come down into the water. Little land. And then we want real bright water right here. Right around that point. And so I'll blend that in a little bit. And we'll be, oops. You know what we need to do here is make sure we don't lose track of where the edge of this water is right here. So let me see how we're going to do this. We're going to do it a little dark, a dark little line right here, where that land comes down in there. This is actually purple, believe it or not. But somehow it works, doesn't it? Then our water goes up around there. Again, we want to make sure we have a relatively straight horizon line so that we don't. But if you're looking at water going around land, you can see a little bit of it on the other side, and so you want to make sure you present it that way. And here, let's get this and just fill in a little bit, make sure that. Now, remember, I promised you we were going to be able to use some. Where did I get this? We were going to be able to use some white here, and I'm actually going to do that right now. I'm going to just put a little bit in here near the shore. Where it's coming in. We're going to leave it that way for a little bit and see if we like it that way later on. Now, how about we do some clouds? I like clouds. Clouds are great. They're darker and they're lighter than the sky around it. So I'm going to use my very best soft pastels to lay them in. And I'm going to have several different colors. I'm going to use sort of a rich blue and maybe a little pink going on. This is actually a light lavender, and I do have something resembling white and things like that with very, very light yellow, things like that. So let's just and again, very, very little. Let's see, I think we decided we were going to have the clouds coming this way. So let's just do a little of that. They would be much lighter and much smaller in the back here. But in the front here, and again, we're covering up a lot of our sky, and I realize that's like sacrilege, but it's okay. We will get there. Again, we're working dark to light here in the sky. So let's do that. Let's add some lighter blue here in our cloud, and then we'll have some clouds back here going back. And again, we haven't added any of our lights in yet, our real lights. But we want our movement. And so here we go. I'm going to start to have little cloudy things going on here. There. And they're just sort of free form, aren't they? They don't follow anybody's rules but their own. Let me blend a little bit. We're going to add a tiny bit of white, but only at the end. So here we go. Soft, soft clouds, right? There. I think we want some more movement, don't we, coming down. So let me add some more blue in. This is a light blue, believe it or not. And I'll just go ahead and have that going on. And it's a fair amount of drama, isn't it? How about some real light? I'll leave the pink out. Some real light white. Around. As the light's breaking through, maybe we have a little bit of yellow in there in the mix. There. Yeah, the skies do tend to be dramatic down there. So we got our lights, we got our darks. I think we want something real dark in there, here and there too. Really. There, that's better. That's more pleasing to me. Hopefully it is to your eye as well. What do you think? Maybe one more. There, we got our lights and our darks. And we don't know what's happening, but something's going on in the sky, isn't it? Yeah. You do see them roll in like this sometimes. A little more of our white. And maybe we'll even put some down here. Like the sun is coming down, reflecting there. I don't like that. Let's put our pink back in. There we are. There we go. All right. Looks like I need a new part of my here it is. I have one here. All right. Get the movement going on, right? And then we'll put our dark water back in because we lost track of that, didn't we? Here we go. Sometimes at the horizon, it is softer. It is a little softer looking. All right, let's get our, we're just about done with this. I am going to lighten up some of those clouds a wee bit, but let's get that back in. There, our land mass coming down. All right, let's just get a little bit of lightness going on that cloud, and then we're going to leave it alone, and we're going to go, to the other composition here, and we're going to work on that, and hopefully make great progress there as well. Movement. There, now I'm going to step away and I'm going to see how this is looking from afar, because that's important.
2, 1.
All right, I'm almost done fooling around here. I do want to add a little bit more white with these pastel pencils to the water, because I realized it was entirely too dark everywhere, and the waves are rolling in. So let's do a little of that, and then maybe we'll put even some darks in underneath. And here's a tip. Sometimes it doesn't even matter what color you use as long as the value is correct. You can get away with a lot that you're not realizing you can get away with. And we want to just emphasize that these are waves rolling in. So there's a little bit of darks in with the lights. So that's enough of a touch up there. I do want to add some grasses in. So let's do a little of that. I think I'll take some nice straw colors. Here's one. Because I'm looking at the photo up here, and we do have some nice light greens, you know, and they're sort of random, and they're here and there, but they're there. So you don't have to be a slave to the photograph. Don't think you have to do that. But when something does enhance a scene and it's in the photograph, notice it and put it in, and enjoy that you've captured that little thing. I'm going to call that good for now. I may go back and fiddle around with it more later on, but I'm going to say for right now, we're done tinkering. Okay, so I think I've tinkered around with this one enough. I'm going to give this a rest now. I may go back and make a couple of adjustments, but I'm fairly happy with it up close, from a distance, and so forth. And do stand back from your work and look at it. You really can't see it when you're on top of it. It's a problem for us. Actually, you know, I may put some more whites in these clouds up here, but I'll think about it. I'll think hard about that. You don't want a lot of white in your clouds. There just isn't a lot of white in the clouds, except maybe at the very edge. I'll demonstrate. Maybe at the very edge you get some of this going on. But you just want to be careful that you don't overdo that. So I may go back, tinker around, but for right now, for our purposes, I think it's time to move on, isn't it? I've decided not to put any of the boats in. They're hard surfaces and they're away from my center of interest. I have in my picture down here on the left, I have a lovely sailboat just coming around the corner, and so that's going to make the cut. We'll have some grasses and things coming around here to add interest, but I've decided the boats are not that important for our composition. But first, let's add some nice, pretty, fluffy clouds in here. We'll start working on our pastels. We'll grab some of our dark, hard pastels first. That's kind of a yummy color, isn't it? I don't like it, though it's too purple. When I took this photograph over here, we had a beautiful cerulean sky. So I'm going to kind of stick with that. Here's a nice one. I'll stick with this. And we're going to start to lay this in a little bit. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I am going to darken up this top part. We're going to leave this fairly light. I may even leave it just that way. So we'll see how close we get. Here's another lighter one. We'll come on down with that. And that may be it. We may put a few nice wispy clouds in there that we can have fun with. And so, so there we are. I cut some more of my trusty insulation pipe, so let's run this a little bit. Get our pretty sky going on here. There. Nice cerulean sky. And we have our land back here. Maybe we don't see that so much looking out in this direction, because this direction we're looking out, really sort of, the ocean is way out there somewhere. So we'll leave that as it be. But we'll maybe add in the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay, which is what you're seeing over here. But I haven't really made that decision yet either. I think what I need to do first is get some of these trees straightened around, and then work on my water, which is really the darkest thing in the painting. So let's start on working on some of that, and then we'll add our beautiful little sailboat just coming around the corner, drifting down the bay, having a wonderful time. Let's see, that's a little too dark. Let me grab one of my luscious soft pastels up here. There's a nice green. Nope, that's not the one. There's a nice green right there. We'll sort of add that in. That's a nice dark green. And we'll add a little red at the base, because I just like to do that. Because it just adds interest, I think. See that? Then we'll get a little lighter, because we're moving away, right? We're moving away a little bit. What do we got here? This one and this one, I think. When I look at these things, yeah, they're just moving away. Moving away. And then we get real light over here. I think this one might be too bright. Let's see. No, I think it's okay. So we'll leave it like that. We'll come down here. I think I want to put some light blue up here at the front. Right here. And correct that. Oh, look at that. Isn't that nice? We'll blend that in a little bit. Let's get a nice clean spot here to blend that. Soften those trees. Down. Put more blue in there. Right there. And notice that the toothiness of this gessoed, watercolor paper is working just fine, isn't it? It's working just fine. Let's cover that guy. And actually, what we'll do is we'll start to make our nice wispy clouds. That's how we'll start that. There's one. They get a little larger as they get higher because they're closer, right? Closer to us. That's some nice toothiness. We will be blending these. Don't want to make them all the same shape, do we? Let's have some of that going on. And then back here they're fainter, and they're maybe a little pinker. Here we go. What are we going to do? We're going to put a little bit deeper blue in there, a little bit, light touch. I'm going to blend it a little bit. See if I can find a clean area. Here we go. Nice fluffy clouds that day. moving quickly. We're not gonna belabor this, but we do want our clouds to be in there making sense, right? Here's a nice light color right here. It's actually a little bit of a peach color, which you often see down there, by the way, down in the water. And I don't know if I'll even blend these, because look at how nice that contrast is. And then we have a little bit going on back here, not much. And let's put some white on. Yes, time for our white. Wispy, wispy coming down and up. I don't want to blend this all so that it has no character, but I think I need to do it a little bit. It's looking a little too spotty for my taste. So let's just do a little bit of that. But we want some of that character. I like that little bit of spottiness on this 300-pound watercolor cold press paper. You get a nice, you get some nice textures going on with this stuff. Kind of fun. We'll leave that like it is for now. We'll come back maybe and add a little bit more white, but let's worry about the water right now, and then we'll put our grass in, and then we'll put in our sailboat. This sort of the star of the show here. I think what I'll do is I'll go back to one of my trusty pastel pencils here and get myself a nice horizon line again, because we've kind of lost it. If you get my drift here. Here's one. Let's see, what color do I want here? How about a nice gray, nice nondescript color? And I'm going to go back in here. Make sure all my friends aren't straightening my picture for the rest of my life. And just a suggestion of a straighter line here. And we can even follow it with some of our softer blue. There. Now I'm looking at the water. The water is pretty dark on this day. I kind of like these different little these different little stripes or things we have going on in the water like this. I kind of like that effect, so that you have real dark showing up and real light showing up. So let's do a little of that. Let's put some of that in. Around the edges. Isn't that fun? And then we've got, of course, some things going on out here too. And then what I want to avoid doing is having everything light back here, because I'm going to put in our beautiful sailboat coming around the corner. And I think I'll do that right now. There he is. We're going to have to have some definition, but not much. Won't take much. Let's just add in a little definition to the sailboat right there. And they show a little bit dark on the water. So let's just get that going on. There's our sailboat. Little tiny guy out there on the horizon. And he's going to be the star of the show. There. And just a suggestion of a sailboat. Then we have our beautiful grasses coming down. We have our, I'm going to kind of leave the beach alone back there because that's kind of how it looks. It really is where the water comes in, beats against that point. So there's not a whole lot that can grow there. But we've got some nice, in my photograph, some nice sandy kind of things going on here. And I'm moving quickly now, but it doesn't bother me if it doesn't bother you. Just getting some darks in. And I might soften some of those. There. And we'll leave some of them kind of spotty because that's kind of what you see at the beach, isn't it? Look at that. And maybe we'll have some green. It looks like there's a little green going on in there. Let's move up into our... I'm going to leave a couple of these... I like what the watercolor pencils do. I mean the pastel pencils do here. They just add a little something, don't they? Maybe some darks and lights with them. And we'll move on back. We'll take a little bit lighter because we're moving away now from ourselves here on down the beach, and things get smaller and lighter. And we have real light things going on in the very front. Ah, here's a good one. I'm going to add some green. There is a little bit of green, and it helps us realize that everything is not dead. But, you know, you do get a lot of these sea oats and grasses growing up down there, and so I want to represent that a little bit. I also want to go back and put in some real darks in this water. I'm not thinking that's dark enough in places yet. There, that's better, I think. We do want to see the contrast, don't we? Yeah, there's a lot of contrast going on out there, and so we need to represent that. Should we soften this a wee bit? Maybe we will. I think that's good. But here at the shore, of course, it comes in and it plays around at the edges. Depends on how turbulent the water is that day. How about we put some of this nice soft green in, and then I think we're done. I'm going to put some of that in because I see it here in the photograph, and it adds a little something. It adds a little something to the front here. It's adds a little life or something, so we'll have some of that going on in the front. And I see also a little gray or lavender. A little lavender. Let's see, we've got a soft pastel I know that has some lavender in it. Let's see if we can get our hands on that real quick. And yeah, yeah, here it is. We'll put a little bit of that in. There. I think that's got it. I think that's got it. So we're gonna leave it there. I hope you try this, and I hope you have fun with it. It is a tremendously, and you can keep tinkering, you know, endlessly. And here I'm putting some more white in my clouds. I don't want to overshadow this wonderful thing down here, but in fact, there we go. That's about, I'm going to stop tinkering now because I'm afraid you know, you can overdo things. And sometimes you have to sit with a painting for a while before you decide if it's really completed or not. The thing that you want to avoid is to keep going back again and again and again because one little thing isn't exactly the way that you want it. Sometimes we have these happy accidents and we may not even recognize how good the painting is before we start tinkering around with it. So do try it. It's fun. It's fun to do the watercolor underneath because it does give you the bare bones about where you're going. It does help intensify the color. In fact, some of the color that you're seeing here, I think, is the watercolor. Whenever you have an underpainting of any sort, in fact, some of my paintings, I've started with orange underneath, and you let some of that show through, it adds interest, it adds layers, it adds something that will make your work more interesting and more vibrant. And so the luminosity shared between the watercolor and the pastels is a wonderful thing to experiment with, and I hope you try it. I really do. I just wanted to mention that I don't use fixative. Some people do. I don't know anybody who works with pastels who use fixatives after the pastel's on there. Because I'm told it changes the color, so I've never even tried it. Because I believe these people, they've been using pastels for quite some time. So you would have to frame this under glass with spacers preferably and mats to keep the work away from the glass. And you'd have to have a backing. And the chalk is gonna fall over time. But I have seen pastels in France that were a couple hundred years old and they're still there. So it's not like this is some fly-by-night temporary thing. You just have to be careful how you frame it to protect it as you go forward. Thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed the Watercolor with Pastels workshop. Thank you for joining me. I do hope you try some of these techniques. It's just fun to tinker around with things. This is actually an oil painting. I won't be using oils in our workshop because it's just too difficult to use oils. They take too long to dry. And you get basically the same effect with acrylics. And so for our next workshop, we will be doing pet portraits, and I'm going to show you the technique that I use to get this result. This is a friend's dog, and I'll be sending this to her. But what I'm going to do for that workshop is to use the technique with a picture of this, a photo of this dog when he was a puppy. And so I look forward to sharing that with you very soon. So I wanted to thank the town of Leonardtown, the North End Gallery, and of course the St. Mary's Arts Council, all of whom support all of us Southern Maryland artists in so many ways throughout the years, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.